Okay, I feel like I need to explain myself here. I'm aware that Gaiden is not exactly easy on the eyes, but it's the only footage I have. I'm not able to record 3DS stuff, and I don't want to use other people's material. And I promise this video is watchable if you've only played Echoes. While Echoes has a massively improved script, the actual substance is mostly the same for the purposes of this video. Anyway, moving on. I think it's a shame that so few people have played the first two Fire Emblem games. I get that NES RPGs aren't most people's idea of fun, but I think there's still value in playing them. Especially if you're invested in the series, seeing how it all started can be cool. Dark Dragon and the Sword of Light executes a lot of its concepts surprisingly well, especially so when you consider that it was practically the first of its genre. That being said, the first game still had a lot of room for improvement. Mainly in terms of storytelling, it was really difficult to follow what was going on in the plot, and only a few characters had enough screen time to leave an impact on the player. This, I feel, is where Gaiden improved the most. While there's definitely a lot to deride Gaiden for, the enhanced clarity of the plot, greater emphasis on a smaller cast, and a stronger thematic throughline are things worth praising. This brings me to Emperor Rudolph. He's one of my favorite antagonists in the series, and in this video I'm going to discuss his role in Gaiden and Echoes, how he fits in as a member of one of Fire Emblem's more common archetypes, and how the additions made in Echoes enhance his character. Rudolph kicks off Gaiden's events with Regel's invasion of Sophia. For the vast majority of the story, Rudolph is unambiguously evil. We see how his invasion has devastated not only Zophians but Regelians as well. The people are suffering from famine, monster attacks, bandits, and tyrannical rulers. Instead of doing anything to protect the people, the Regelian army just pushes on with their conquest, leaving Ulm and Celica to clean up after them. We even see his actions create a rift between our protagonists. Ulm wants to take the fight to Regel while Celica wants to seek a more diplomatic solution. This, of course, mirrors the conflict between Duma and Milla, and Ulm and Celica's parallels to the gods are an extremely important part of this story. I like that Rudolph's actions are the impetus of this scene that's so important to the game's themes. Even if you don't see him until near the end of the game, his influence is felt throughout, which strengthens his place in the narrative. Gaiden does plant seeds indicating that there's more to Rudolph beneath the surface. Several hints that Ulm has some connection to Regel royalty, and the knight Zeke having been saved by him may pique the player's interest going into the final battle of Chapter 4. This fight opens with a pretty somber monologue coming from Rudolph. He's accepted that Regel is over and just hopes for his remaining soldiers to survive. When fought, Rudolph refuses to attack Ulm. An enemy having unique behavior like this was a first for the series, even Mathis couldn't control himself. Him showing mercy to Ulm, the leader of Sophia's army, is obviously quite odd. When defeated, we get this exchange. Him explicitly asking Ulm to kill Duma was pretty unexpected. You'd think that Rudolph was doing all this in service of Duma, but it seems he had deeper motivations. Thankfully, we don't have to wait long for answers as Mycen is waiting inside Regel Keep. I love this motivation. The idea of a character who hates the world so much that they want to wipe the slate clean is something I always find at least a little compelling. It's a pretty shoddy plan though. For example, what if Regel's invasion was unsuccessful and Ulm was never roused to join the war? Though Rudolph seems too ubermensch to even consider that as a possibility. Why make plans for failure when you can just not fail? While it's tempting to propose that they give him a backup, I actually don't like that idea. Rudolph being 100% committed to this singular plan and completely unwilling to compromise enhances the thematic impact of his death. Given how important teamwork is to Gaiden's themes, someone completely unwilling to work with others should be punished. I think the events of the game do a good job of showing how Rudolph would come to the conclusion that he's in the right. Without Milla, Zofia falls into a famine that lasts several years, and despite the atrocities being committed, Zeke ends up being the only member of Regel's military to take much issue with it. It's a neat way of reinforcing Rudolph's motivation through world building. Rudolph posed as the Destroyer is such a sick line. I know Fire Emblem names its tropes after characters, but the Destroyer would be a perfect fit for characters like Arvis, Sephiel, Ashnard, and Edelgard. Anyway, what I like so much about Rudolph in this game is that he has a tangible impact on the world and characters, reinforces Gaiden's themes, and has a compelling motivation that's rooted in Valenty's culture. I think it's impressive that a 1992 RPG was able to pull off a character whose motivations were genuinely understandable but still flawed. I think Rudolph has an interesting place as a villain in these early Fire Emblem games, and showcases how tropes can be used effectively. I'll be looking at Camus and Arvis, two similarly sympathetic bad guys who I think make for good points of comparison. While they may serve similar roles, the details of their characters help them stand out from one another. Camus' story is about knighthood. He's balancing doing what's right for his king, what's right for the people, and what's right for Nina. However, he tries to bear it all alone and is eventually pushed into a corner, resulting in his failure. Rudolph's story is about cooperation. He took issue with how much influence the gods had over humanity and so decided unilaterally to fix it. Because he fell into the same trappings as Duma and Milla in regards to compromise, he failed. Arvis' story is about discrimination. He wanted to make a world where his people wouldn't be hunted as a result of their bloodline. However, his caginess in regards to who he would trust led to his downfall. At their core, all three of these characters had some grand ambition that failed because they weren't willing to rely on and trust others. In contrast, the protagonists of each game succeeded because they were willing to do just that. Despite these similarities, I don't think you would say that Camus, Rudolph, and Arvis are basically the same character. I think these three work as good examples of how Fire Emblem is capable of taking an archetype and doing unique and interesting things with it. Now on to Echoes. Berkut is, more important to Alm's story than Rudolph's. I do like Berkut a lot, but in a video focused on Rudolph, I'm struggling to come up with much to say about him. I guess it shows that Alm is really the only person that Rudolph has much of a soft spot for. Something much more interesting that was added by Echoes is Rudolph's theme song, Lord of a Dead Empire. This song is from Rudolph's perspective and provides insight into how he feels about his role in the war. These lyrics are taken from the official Echoes memorial book. His words towards Duma come across as pity. It's like he views Duma as a decrepit creature that should have been put down long ago. What's interesting is that he still shows reverence toward Duma. I like having it explicitly stated that Rudolph doesn't hate the gods and instead hates the people's reliance on them. It lends nuance and thus believability. He's also shown to be thinking of Alm, the people of Rigel, and the people of Valentia in general. I think this is meant to show that he really does care and he thinks he's doing what's best for them. This last part though is kind of the reason I made this video. Grief and sadness both will now come to an end. I will become your demon. The age of gods is over. The people must walk from the water and walk away from the end of the promise that was made. I gladly turn myself over to the flames. I do not regret the foundation of this new world. This is the perfect encapsulation of everything that not only Rudolph, but the Destroyer archetype in general stands for. Becoming a devil in the eyes of the people if it means creating a better world, relinquishing people from restraints placed on them by higher powers, and doing so with unwavering confidence despite knowing how you'll be looked upon. I think it has the potential for really tragic villains, and I love it. Rudolph is an excellent villain, both in the context of a 1992 8-bit RPG and just in general. He's an example of how a well-written antagonist can do wonders for a game's narrative, and Gaiden's story wouldn't be as thematically strong without him. He's also the first of the Emperor Guy archetype, which would go on to become a staple in the series. Basically, Rudolph's really cool.